Hey, welcome to the Thought Leader Podcast. If we are meeting for the first time, my name is Chris Pyron, and today I am joined by my longtime friend and colleague, Mr. Daryl Sutton.
What's up, brother?
Man, I'm so excited that we're finally getting to do this.
Dude, we've been talking about this for so long.
Yep.
And, man, I'm ready to get it out.
Yeah.
Ready to do this thing.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. So we wanted to start this podcast as kind of a way to share the stories of the people to get the stories behind the production, right?
Yep.
The folks in worship production specifically.
Yep.
You know, it's like, well, yeah, cool. They're lighting designers. They're, scenic designers. They're audio. Whatever their roles are. But it's like, but there's a person there. There's a human there.
Yeah.
And kind of get their backstory.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the other thing that we have seen through mentor circle calls and retreats is sometimes just taking the opportunity to tell your story to someone else. You really can lay in the foundation of what God has called you to do and who God has called you to be. And sometimes in the rhythm of life, like you forget about that. Mm-hmm. You only focus on what's in front of you. And so I think it's important to do this format so that we can, I hate to say the word force, but kind of force people to tell that story, but really for them to hear their own story. Yeah. That's the cool part for me.
Yeah. It's a good reminder. Because I mean, some of the folks that we know who we've got lined up to come on, have been doing this, 5, 10, some of them 15 years. And it could be a good reminder for them to go, oh, yeah, this is how I got here and why I'm doing what I do.
Yeah. And I'm excited for it because, a lot of these folks that we have lined up to come on, and hopefully many more, I want to know things I've never asked them before. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like really, I don't know, silly things like, where did you grow up? Yeah. What was that environment when you grew up? I think that contextually that just puts more of an understanding of who they are. So I'm excited about that just for the personal relationship as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah. Well, you and I have known each other a long time, but I'm going to ask you that question.
Come on.
Let's start at the very beginning of Daryl Sutton. Where did you grow up? Where were you born?
Yeah. So, well, here we go. All right. Now I'm going to see how hard it is to do this, right?
If you can make it through, everybody else will be golden.
Yeah. Well, do we have enough hard drive space for
I
this?
hope so.
Okay. All right. No, so I was born in St. Louis County Hospital in St. Louis, Missouri. Don't remember much about that time period. Moved to Branson, Missouri when I was 4 years old, roughly. So have some vague memories of some St. Louis stuff, but not much. So moved to Branson when I was about 4 years old. My dad worked for the Army Corps of Engineers. In St. Louis, he had actually worked for a bridge building company. Mm-hmm. They built, highway bridges, that kind of stuff. And he got a job with the Army Corps of Engineers, which there's a big project in the Branson area, and that's where he got hired onto. So that's what moved us to the area. So my mom and my older sister, Shauna, and my dad, we moved there. And, Branson, if you don't know, especially in the early 80s into the 90s, well, you do know because you were raised.
I lived through it too.
Yeah. Big time kind of Midwest vacation area, a lot of live music theaters. Of course, we have the Three Lakes and, all the beauty of the Ozarks and that kind of stuff. But as a kid, I remember we were involved in. My family wasn't involved in the entertainment industry necessarily. My mom worked at a real estate office. My dad worked for the Army Corps of Engineers. But my sister and I were very involved with the local theater scene at a young age. At that time, there really wasn't child labor laws that were enforced. Yeah. So, during the summer jobs were working at the theaters. Mm-hmm. You know that. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, that is where I think I got a lot of my foundation in regards to dealing with people. At the age of 10, I was working a concession stand, and I was dealing with, people getting on popcorn and soda. And, of course, in the Ozarks, we're very hospitable. So it's, what can I get you? How can I help you? You know, all that kind of stuff. And so at a young age, just that was instilled in me and in how to deal with people and serve them and that kind of stuff. And it also tied in with the musical side as well. And of course, being in church and being raised in church, all that just kind of came together for, nice pot roast type scenario, I guess, for my career. But yeah, so grew up there and was involved in the theater scene. My mom and I actually used to do like a mother-son type singing thing.
Oh, no kidding.
And we were the Sunday matinee special guest at the Ozarks Country Jubilee, the Nobleman Show, for a time period. And I think I was about 8 years old at that time. And it was fun. You know, I met a lot of people that I'm still friends with today. But we really were connected at the Ozarks Country Jubilee. That was kind of the foundation. That was our family, if you will, I guess, in the area that was tied in with the entertainment side of things. And so I spent a lot of time during the summer there. Might have been working in the concession stand, but I was, you know, during the week singing on Sundays. But then I spent a lot of time, because at the time there was one dude that was the sound and lighting. There was no video in the theaters at the time.
Sure. Yeah.
So there was a sound and lighting guy, and if there were 3 shows a day or 4 shows a day in a theater, 7 days a week, he was doing 90% of those shows. So he was there all the time, and of course, you know, kind of being on the singing side of the stage, but then also the front side, I wanted to learn the technical side. Mm-hmm. And so I was the young kid always, hey, yeah, I can help you run that cable. Hey, show me what this knob does. You know, what is that? When you move this, it helped me, you know. So at a very young age, I was interested in that and wanting to understand it probably more from the performance side. But by the age of 13, you know, I work in the lighting and have for many years now. But I actually started my first job, my first real job, I say, especially career-driven, was when I was 13 years old. I got to run front of house one summer for the Blackwood Singers and Blackwood Quartet matinee show.
Okay.
And it was that moment where the sound and lighting guy needed some time off, and he was like, hey, I think this kid can do it.
So he could get his Sunday afternoons back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so anyway, it was a great experience. You know, I started mixing on a PV Mark III with SP1s as the mains. So yeah, that gives you driven by CS 800s. Come on,
I mean, wow,
boat anchors, right?
I used to own that Mark III, actually, not that particular engine, but I had a Mark III as well.
Yeah, bro, it was great. It was great, and you know, getting to I think I really enjoyed it because coming from the singing part of it. You know, with my mom and I, being able to mix a quartet, and it was really it was a 5-piece because there was piano player sings as well, but you know, just the 4 guys out front. But being able to do that and the band and everything, I really enjoyed, and I really got to understand the musical side of it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There is an artistry side of the technical and being able to understand that, but being able to marry those two together. I think even at a young age, I was able to appreciate that. But anyway, so of course was raised in the church, and I played drums as well. And so I was involved with the worship team. And I mean, I was, I think for the most part, probably from about the age of 9 or 10, I mean, I played drums in the worship team at our church until I was in my mid to late teens anyway. Mm. And so very involved in the church and growing up being musically and around, you know, in the church, but then also in the theater industry there in Branson. And of course we had our high school, you know, garage band, and we were kind of the Stephen Curtis Chapman knockoff band in the area. And so, yeah, we, you know, had our buddies. We all kind of did our own things. Actually, one of the guys actually played in a show, even though he was 18 years old. He was a guitar player and a fiddle player, kind of a front person. He and his brother had a little act. But yeah, it was just, you know, buddies that kind of hung out in the area, was in that scene. But we were like, hey, we want to do, you know, something that's different than, you know, what we do on Sunday mornings. And we want to go out and do some youth things and have fun. And so, yeah, many nights we all would work our shows, and we'd be done by 10:30 or whatever, and we'd show up at our buddy Kevin's house in his garage and kick off about 11:30 or midnight. And I think the cops normally showed up about 1:30 or 2. You know,
the neighbors loved you guys, I'm
sure. Yeah. But eventually we got it down to where we, you know, had everything in cans, and you know, the drums. Well, anyway, long story, but kind of built a pseudo studio in there so we could practice. But man, it was great. It was great. And even those times, I think, really, I don't know, fed my desire to do this more. Going to school, I went to school more for the community aspect. Absolutely, more so that than for the learning side of it. I really wasn't the guy that wanted to read the books or to do the reports or do those kind of things. But I was heavily involved socially in school. I was the guy that would walk down the halls, and it didn't matter if your family was poor or your family was rich. We had some connection point, right? Didn't hang out with all of those people all the time, right? Involved in student council and did band for a couple years until we had a band instructor that he and I didn't see eye to eye, I would say would probably be the best way to put it. Played in the jazz band, the pep band, the 2 or 3 years that I was a part of that program, but loved it. Didn't play any sports.
Okay.
Sports just wasn't my thing. And a lot of that, I think, was driven from, I didn't have the personal drive for that. I wanted to work. And if you worked in the theaters or around the area, you didn't have much time for football practice or basketball practice and those kind of things. And so just really wasn't anything I was super interested in naturally. And dude, I'd rather go make $100 a week or something, that was kind of my philosophy, and enjoyed it.
Right.
Loved working. It never really was work. At times, of course. But man, I love being around people, and I loved the entertainment side of things. And man, having your own folding walking money, that's pretty good.
Yep.
When you're young. So
keep gas in the tank and all that good stuff.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely.
Cool. So you worked through high school, in the theater industry there, the theater business. Mm-hmm. So what happened after high school?
Yeah. So I'll go. So high school time, as I said, I was there for the social time. The education was just kind of secondary. I had zero, maybe negative 50% desire to continue education after school.
Okay.
I was, I felt like, and I'll be honest, I didn't want to put a financial burden on my family. And there was only one option where that wouldn't have done it, and I really wasn't interested in that direction. So I really just had no desire to do it. I wanted to get into the workforce. I wanted to see what was next. Wanted to make more money. My high school sweetheart, Heidi, and I had been dating for, by the time we graduated, we'd been dating for a little over a year. And, we knew that we were probably going to get married pretty early. And we did. We got married at 19. So... but just kind of knowing all of that was kind of happening at graduation time, I was just like, I just need to find a steady gig here in town. At the time, it was very seasonal in Branson. So it was 10 months out of the year, as you know, mm-hmm. and then 2 months out of the year, a lot of people were laid off on unemployment, right, or finding odd jobs. And there's not really any economy necessarily at the time that wasn't tourist driven. So if the tourists aren't there, the jobs aren't there in those seasons. And that was just...
The theaters basically just shuttered, and they went black for a couple months there,
exactly,
the first part of the year.
Exactly. And a lot of the entertainers even, they had day jobs. They were realtors or they did other things. It was just like they had a night gig. And right. So during the winter months, a lot of them still kind of had those normal jobs in the area. But most of the tech guys didn't, because, to keep the theater running tech-wise, as we all know, to keep the church running or the theater, to keep the production running, that's a full-time job. However, in the off-season, they shut the doors. And unless you were doing an upgrade or a modification or something like that, there wasn't a paycheck. So anyway, I knew that, I needed to find something. And, a buddy of mine, we were hanging out, and I was like, dude, I just need to find, a steady gig. I need to find something that's steady, if I could get insurance, that kind of stuff, whatever, some benefits. And he told me, he said, my brother just took a job down at the Lloyd's Electric warehouse, which Lloyd's Electric is a local wholesaler of electrical supplies. And they've got a warehouse position open. And I was like, okay. Lloyd's had been around for, I think at that time, 30 some odd years, and very, very solid local family-owned, multi-generational type company. And so I went down and applied, and really just went in there looking for this warehouse job for electrical wholesale supply house. And it's crazy how God kind of works because, put all of my, you fill out the application and you put your experience and all that in. And Phil Lloyd called me in and we were going through my resume and he's like, so you have some audio, some AVL experience, or AL experience, I guess, audio lighting video. Anyway, he's like, so you kind of do some of that stuff. I see you've done it. I'm like, yeah. And he said, well, we actually just like a couple months ago, we started a new division here called Theatrical Lighting Concepts. And we have a gentleman who's running that, who was a lighting designer for a country artist that had moved to Branson and set up residency in his own theater there. And he said, but he's left that and he's coming here to help us establish this new division. And, we might be ready to maybe pull you in and maybe help do some of his warehousing part-time and then fill this other position on the electrical side and just kind of see how that works. And I was like, dude, that'd be awesome. I didn't know much about lighting at the time. I was more of an audio guy, but I was like, yeah, let's do this. And so anyway, I won't go into all the details of that, but it was great. I mean, my wife and I got married and now I have this job that's 12 months out of the year and, there's a profit sharing plan and there's insurance and there's PTO, which I had no idea what that was. Paid time off. What? Normally if I took time off, I didn't get paid, right?
Right. These big boy jobs are kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's got some good perks.
This adulting thing is kind of all right, little did I know. But anyway, so I was there for a couple years and then that gentleman and the owner of Lloyd's Electric kind of parted ways, but Phil Lloyd decided to keep the Theatrical Lighting Concepts and ask it. By that point, I had started kind of helping out doing some audio stuff because we did a lot of expendables business.
Okay.
We would do some installs, but we weren't an integrator. We were more of a local supply shop. Okay. So I had, we were stocking SM58s and, kind of your standard stuff that the theaters might need last minute XLR cables. Of course, we did gaff tape, lamps, gel, all that kind of stuff. But so I had kind of helped bring in as an audio guy, these are the things that I think we should have on the shelf and that kind of jazz. And so when this gentleman left, which I owe a lot to him, just for giving me a foundation of understanding lighting, and he had worked for a large manufacturer in the late '80s, early '90s at that point, and he was pretty well known. And so anyway, just him instilling a lot of that in me, and I actually went through the process of at the time getting certified to do warranty repairs on lighting fixtures, which again, it's like I wasn't a lighting guy, right? Right. So this gentleman leaves. There's a lot of great experience I got in those 2 years. I mean, it's like if you want to take 4 years of college plus a master's program and put it into 2 years, I think that's what I got.
Oh, that intense.
I mean, it really was like I went from not understanding anything short of a Parcan. Really, Parcans are mostly what I had worked with, and a Leprechaun LM850 was the first console I ever worked on. Going from that and some dimmer packs that didn't work half the time, into servicing cyber lights and telebeams, understanding how to program, at the time, a little bit on a status Q console, and just like in 2 years, I really just got infused with this download of like, whoa, a lot of information, and so the gentleman leaves. Phil Lloyd says, "Hey, can you kind of keep this thing afloat?" He made me a financial offer that at the time I was like, bro, I'm making the big bucks. I said, yes, absolutely. My wife and I were expecting our first child at the time. So it's like I didn't want to have to figure anything else out, right, too, on top of that. And so stayed, and man, it was great. I stayed for 4 years there. So I was there a total of 6. But 4 years, I was the managing director. Ultimately, that's the role that he had given me. And really just learned the whole understanding the distribution side of things, how to take care of customers' needs, understanding the customers' needs. The crew at Lloyd's, and I know you have some history in this. A
little bit.
We'll get to.
We'll talk about it in the next episode.
But man, that group of individuals that worked there that had been part of that company since Henry Lloyd had started it, they were individuals that they knew their stuff. but they wanted you to know what they knew. Mm-hmm. And I think that season that I was there is when I really, really understood the value of transferring knowledge, maybe not even to the next gen, but to the people beside you, above you, below you. Like, if we all have the information, we can now work better together as a team. And I saw that there. Now, there was different personalities and there were conflicts at times, just like there's in any organization or family or group of people. But as a young individual in my early 20s, and I'm working with guys that, I went to school with their kids.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the connection there. But them not only saying, okay, you need, we talked about this the other day. I learned what a low voltage relay was because I needed a low voltage relay. We had a conversation and you had a very
just a couple days ago. We were talking about this.
Exactly. And so to put it into example is I needed a low voltage relay, and I go into Don Udy and say, hey, this is what I need. Customer needs like a dozen. And he goes, okay, I can help you find that. Do you understand what a low voltage relay is? I have no idea. Sat down, drew out the chart, showed me how it worked, and I was like going, okay. Was able to ask questions. He was able to respond. And I left there. Yeah, I got the information I needed. Okay, here's what I need to order. This is where we order it from. Price for the customer. I can get that taken care of. But I walked out of that room empowered with information and knowledge that I didn't have before.
Right. It wasn't just here, this is what you need, go order 12 of these from the supplier. It was,
correct.
Oh, yeah, and this is why he needs this, or this is how this thing works.
Correct. And I have to say, because it's a funny story, but with Don Udy, his son Robert and I, when I first moved to Branson, we got connected because my aunt babysat Robert. She lived in Branson already. And so we got connected. He was probably my first friend that I can remember. And I used to go over to his house. Every time I would go over to his house, his mom, Sue, would be there. And so Daryl and Robert would be there and Sue would be there, but I never saw Don. I knew that he had a dad, but like every time, a couple times I saw him, when I pulled in, he was getting in his truck and he and his boat were leaving. And later, when I'm working at Lloyd's, he and I had a conversation. I said, you never were at the house when I was over.
Right.
Like, and he looked at me, he goes, I can't handle you boys. He's like, every time I knew you guys were coming over, because we would play, we would run. We were building forts. We were doing all the stuff that kids did and in that time anyway. But Don was just like, nope. He said, when I knew that you were coming over, not me specifically, but just when Robert would have friends over, he's like, I would hook up the boat and I would go out to the lake and I'd go fishing.
You'd go fishing when the boys were over. That's funny.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. So anyway, Lloyd's Electric Supply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Lloyd's Electric Supply turned into Theatrical Lighting Concepts there with that move there.
Yep.
What happened after Theatrical Lighting Concepts?
So through that journey of taking the 4 years of being a managing director, I actually, part of that role is manufacturer vendor relations.
Sure.
And so I had, that was part of my job now. The individual had left, and so now I've got to have those relations with factory reps, independent reps, whatever it is, right? How are we buying the stuff? Who are we buying from? So I had developed a good relationship with one of my reps, Lewis Long. Okay. And we, at the time, so he was with Martin Lighting, and Martin had a line of speakers called Mach speakers, which I know you're very familiar with.
Mach, yeah.
And we sold a lot of Mach speakers at Theatrical Lighting Concepts. I won't get into all the whys and everything, but we sold a lot. And Lewis was my rep, but he's like, bro, I don't know anything about audio. Like we manufacture these speakers, we sell them. I'm a lighting guy, whatever. And so just through that relationship of working with him with the lighting side and the audio side, there was an opportunity that had presented itself where they were looking at hiring someone in the U.S. to kind of oversee. Wasn't product development, but kind of like manage the brand in the United States, the Mach speaker. Somebody to come in and kind of put a business plan together. How can we grow this here in the U.S., that kind of thing. Okay. And he's like, dude, you know more about Mach speakers than anyone else I know, you should apply. You should apply for this position. And I'm like, bro, I'm a 23, 24-year-old hillbilly from the Ozarks. I don't have a resume that, anyone within a manufacturer would even consider. Like, I wouldn't get an interview, man. And he's like, I think you would. Like, he really encouraged me for, I don't know, maybe a week or so. And so finally I was like, all right, dude, I stayed up. I did the typewriter thing. I had to create a resume because I didn't have a resume at the time. Before I filled out applications, actually, and even before that, people just said, "Oh, he's a good dude. Hire him." Right? He can mix. I think he can do this job. Just let him. Let's try it. So I create this resume on a typewriter, and I send it off. Send it through fax at Lloyd's. Don't tell him I'm sending it. It's terrible. I probably owe him for that. I'll pay you guys back at some point.
Give him his 27 cents.
27 cents back, yeah. And so anyway, kind of long story short, I actually did get an interview, and they let me know that, hey, they had actually filled that position with another individual already, but that they had something coming up that they thought, after talking with Lewis and getting, seeing my resume, talking with Lewis and understanding my personality and everything, and just like there might be something coming soon. So, okay, cool, great. So I just continue on at Theatrical Lighting Concepts. And then there was about a month later, they contacted me back and said, hey, we're looking at adding a regional sales position, essentially taking Lewis's territory, which he had, I don't remember the exact number, but let's say 13 states that he covered, with independent reps kind of working underneath him, one in the north and one in the south. They were making the decision at that point to not have reps anymore and cover those territories with factory guys. Okay. And so Lewis was going to take the northern states, and they were looking for someone to take the central southern 6 states on a regional sales manager. Now, I lived in one of those states. And so they're like, we think you'd be potentially a good fit for that. So I'm like, okay, cool, great. That sounds like an interesting opportunity. I mean, dude, I'm like sitting here just like, I can't even believe they're even considering me, So go down to Florida, have a meeting. Everything goes pretty well. Then it's bring the wife down to Florida, because the whole thing was they wanted me to move to Fort Lauderdale. And my wife was pregnant with our second son at the time. And I'm like, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know that moving my family away from, we've got a family unit. I would say at that time, within 30 minutes of where we lived in Branson, we had 35, 40 family members.
Oh, you had a lot of family in the area. A lot
of family in the area. Okay. For some reason, a lot of my family just kind of landed in that, 30, 40-mile radius of Branson. And so anyway, I'll fast forward because nobody cares about all the details. But ultimately, my wife said, great place to visit. I don't feel like this is a place for me to live, for us to live. And I didn't disagree with her, if I'm going to be honest. So we turned the job down. And I told him, I said, I think I am the guy for the job, but I can't move my family so far away from our family unit, and we're getting ready to have a child and all this kind of stuff. And so they understood. I said, okay. Went back to Theatrical Lighting Concepts. 30 days later, and part of this whole thing was I had tried to get them talked into letting me work remote, and they had some individuals that had worked remote in the past. It didn't work. They weren't willing to try it again.
Now, this was long before work from home became a thing, way it has in the past number of years, where everybody's been working from home.
Yeah,
this was not a normal thing for most organizations at that time.
That's right, absolutely. So, 30 days goes by, and they call me back and they said, "You know what? We think you're right." And I said, "What?" And they said, "We think you are the right guy for the job, and here's what we're willing to do. If you're willing to do this, we'll try it for 12 months." You come work here. In 12 months, though, if it doesn't work, we have the right to shake hands and kind of go different directions. And that's probably the biggest risk, I think, that I maybe have made in my career, at least up to that point. For sure it was. But I was like, leaving this solid. I'm very committed to Theatrical Lighting Concepts, to the people. They've invested so much in me. It's been a great opportunity. I've learned a ton, even to the point of getting kind of positioned to have this opportunity, which is really cool. But I'm like, you know what? I think I can make this work. So it really wasn't much of a risk. And I really felt like God had prepared. Obviously, God had opened doors there, because that's not, when I say I was a hillbilly from Missouri, you knew me, it 100%. And so anyway, got the job. It was great. For the first 3.5 years, I was a regional sales manager. Was very blessed in that role. Made some great friends. Got to understand the manufacturing side of things really well. The good, the bad, the ugly, and it's everywhere. It's, this isn't specific to Martin or anything, but man, we just had a great team at Martin. Great group of guys. In a lot of ways, I was always the different guy, but we all had our own differences. I mean, meaning not in a negative way, just we were all different, but like this melting pot of all these people coming together. I definitely was the preacher guy. There's no question about that. But man, just everyone really worked well together, loved each other. We were growing a brand that was, really taking off. We were doing some big stuff. And but about 4 years in, we had a leadership change. And, when leadership change happens, of course, restructure, and they want to put their thumbprint on how the organization is ran and everything. And so during that time period, I was offered a position. And, if I'm, full transparency, it was one of 4 positions that probably out of the 12 of us that were in the sales team at the time, everyone in the sales team wanted one of those 4 positions. And so I was very honored to be offered that role. And but I'm on the phone, and by this point, we actually had an office in Branson. Brad Haynes,
a Martin office,
in Branson. Brad Haynes had come onto the team, and he lived in Ozark, just north of there. Daryl Barnes had come onto the team. He still lives in Branson as well. And J.R. Bradford lived in Branson and had come on the team. And we'll go into the details, but basically we had 4 of us that were living in that close proximity, all working together before this change happened. And so we had a little office there. It was just a place for us to not work at home, just to come together as community and kind of whatever. And so I remember I was on the phone with our new director that had come in, CEO, I think is what the title actually was. And he's telling me about this role that he wants to offer me. And I had been kind of struggling before leading into this transition of leadership. I'd really been struggling with the whole, my career's gotten me to this point. I was still very much involved in church, the worship team, but I say it differently now. I know what my calling is, but I didn't know what my mission was,
Okay.
And what is my mission? And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking at some point I'm going to be in full-time ministry. Like all growing up, that's what I thought. At some point, I'm going to be in full-time ministry. I don't know what that looks like. Well, later, God told me you are in full-time ministry as a believer.
Amen.
That's my calling, right? The mission is, where has He placed me in this season to do what needs to be done?
What's your current mission field that you're working in?
Right. And so I always thought it was probably like vocational ministry or something like that. But in Branson, growing up, we might have had one guy that might have been part-time at a church in our area that was the AVL guy. So it wasn't a thing if you were going to live in Branson to be a vocational tech guy. Even today, there's not many of them. And so I never knew what that was, but here I found myself, now working in the industry for a manufacturer. We got a leadership, coming in, and I'm just like still personally struggling, which is like, God, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, I feel like you've led me to this point, and you've given me these things to do the things that I've been able to do, and you've definitely placed my feet in the right spots. But I just felt like there was more, and I couldn't tell you what it was. And I had a moment where at the end of the day, I was sitting at my desk, and I just had like this feeling come across me where I just felt like, and we've talked about this before, I've shared this with you, but like I just felt like I didn't feel good, I didn't feel bad, I just kind of it was almost like a flatline feeling, and I can't explain it other than I felt like I was in the middle of a desert, no one was around me, it wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cold, it wasn't too windy, the sun was out. I mean, that's kind of, if you put yourself in that place, that's kind of what I felt like.
Okay.
I felt like empty yet full, but it was the most odd feeling I can tell you, other than it got my attention. It got my attention. And I started going through the process. I mean, I immediately, once I had this feeling come over me, I'm like praying. I'm like, God, what is it? Is it finances? Always could be finances, but like nothing really major at that time. Is it relationship with my wife? No. Is it relationship with my kids? Is it what's causing me to have this feeling? I couldn't identify it. And so that night, that happened about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 o'clock, kind of into the work day, go, hey, to the wife, what are we going to do for dinner? I didn't have anything planned. And we decided to go to a pizza place. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I'll go pick the pizza up, bring it home, that type of thing. So she calls in the pizza. I go over there. On the way over there, I'm just praying the whole time because I'm like feeling this weird. I hadn't told my wife this, and I don't even know, this might be the first time she might actually hear this story, even if she listens to this. She kind of knows most of my life stories, so she may not watch it or listen, but
we'll just tell her to fast forward to this time step.
Yeah, exactly. And so I go there, and on my way there, I called a buddy of mine, and I'm like just telling him this whole thing, kind of what's going on. I'm like, man, I don't know what this is, this and that. I just need somebody. I just need you to pray for me, type thing. He was like, absolutely, dude. I'll pray for you. And and it wasn't really any wisdom drops or anything like that. He was just like listening and like, okay, bro, I'll be praying for you. Awesome. So I get there. I go into this pizza place. Again, this pizza place we go to all the time. We go there and eat. We go there, pick stuff. It's all the time. So I walk in. Hey, I'm here to pick up pizza. She's like, we don't have an order here. I'm like, well, my wife called in. Ended up, my wife called the location in Branson West, which is 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
My wife wouldn't do that. I mean, that's just, that's not something she knows. We go to the one in Hollister, and that's the one she would have called. Anyway, so they were like, hey, no big deal. We'll have to remake it, though. It'll be about 15 to 20 minutes. I was like, great, because I got this feeling. I'm trying to process what's going on. So I go to my truck, and I sit in my truck, and I'm just kind of being me, which is like, God, what's going on? I mean, I'm saying this out loud. Like, what's going on? I don't know why I feel this way. I don't feel bad. I don't feel great. I just this and that. And as audibly as you and I are talking right now, God said, I heard a voice. And people would tell me they don't. I don't know. I heard the voice. And I heard a voice that I identify as being God speak to me and say, who's in charge of your life? And I was like, that's weird. And I just said, well, kind of in a heart posture of prayer, I was like, you, God. And I heard him say again, I heard the voice again, who's in charge of your life? And I'm like, you.
Right.
And the third time, and isn't it weird how God does things in threes?
In threes, yeah.
The third time, I heard, no, I really want to know who is in charge of your life. And I immediately started crying, and I'm right now, sorry. I was like, I don't know. I think I've surrendered to you. I think it's you, but I don't know the answer. And I heard God say, if you seek my face and you seek me first and you give me control of your life, I will give you the desires of your heart. And I had immediate peace. Immediate. Like you had taken me out of that desert scene and you had put me on the beach with a nice tropical drink and my wife and my family and the sun and the wind. Like it was like immediate in my F-150 truck sitting in the parking lot of the pizza place. And I'm like, wow, okay, God, let's talk about this. And like he was gone. And I'm like, okay, I know what my marching order is. And so every day, I was praying multiple times a day, walking from my office to the bathroom. Didn't matter what I was doing. I was just like constantly like, God, I surrender it all to you. I want your will for my life. I want you to show me what it is. So all of this happens, and for like 3 months, I'm getting back to the whole transition thing of in leadership. This happened before that. And so leading up to that, I go down to Florida, old group or old leadership, and 45 days into this prayer process, this situation that happened in my truck at the pizza place. And I walk in, and we had an amazing CEO at the time. His name was Troels Volver. Great dude. He was my Danish redneck brother. Very Danish, and he used to call me Dr. Neck. Every time I would walk in, he would say, Dr. Neck's in the house, type thing, but it stood for Daryl the Redneck. And not a redneck, but,
Right,
anyway,
right.
That's what he called me. That was kind of my fun nickname. And so I walk in, and I hear booming in the office, Dr. Neck's in the house, and so I walk in, and he's like, come into my office. So I go into his office. Now, with all due respect, Troels was not a person that would talk about church or anything like that.
Okay.
I'm not going to question, anything there in his faith or anything like that, but it's just, that's not, a conversation he and I really ever had. He knows me. He knows my belief system. He knows the customers, if you will, that I'm working with, which was a lot of churches. He pulls me in. He goes, I want to talk to you about the church market. And I'm like, well, that's out of left field, but great. Let's talk. I had like a 45-minute conversation just, about the church customers that I'd worked with and kind of how they use gear and all this kind of stuff. So I'm thinking, there on that trip, I'm like, all right, God, I got you.
Yeah.
And then 30 days later, we get the announcement that he's leaving the company. We're changing. So I'm like,
oh,
okay. So like, here I am in this flat thing. Like I have this weird feeling, and then God says, seek my face. And I say, okay, I do that. And 30 days later, hey, there's a tick here. Mm-hmm. Like this is going somewhere. Like he's asking me about the house of worship market. We're thinking about making an investment in that. Okay, this is awesome. And then he's gone.
Right.
Conversation dead. But I went right back to the flat where I stayed consistent in my prayer. God, I surrender all to you. Whatever you want in my career, whatever you want for me and my family to do, I want to be true to that. Mm-hmm. And so new leadership comes in about 30 days later. I'm in the Branson office. I'm moving all around here on you. Back in the Branson office, get the phone call. 4 coveted positions, if you will, within the sales team of 12 people. Daryl, you have the opportunity to have one of those. And I'm telling you, Chris, it was not me. I flat out said, that's not the role for me. I didn't have the ability to have said that to this individual at that time, mm-hmm. meaning like I should not have said that probably, but I just felt like God prompted me to say, that's not your role. And I was like, that's not the right role for me. And this individual was like, well, hold on. Like you realize like I'm giving you one of these 4 coveted positions. And I was like, yeah, I totally understand what you're offering. And I appreciate that. And I'm humbled. And he said, well, what do you think, which role of this that I put out in front of you explaining the organizational chart do you think you should take? And I'm like, none of them. And he's wow. Or you don't want to be on the team? I said, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. And so I just told him, I said, you don't know me well yet, because he was new to our organization, everything. I said, but, I come from the church community. And I said, I serve the church community a lot in my territory. I work a lot with them, and, we've had some good success there at the time. And I said, I just think that there is a need for manufacturers to focus on relationships with end users, not just our dealer distribution side of things. And I think we should develop a role that is focused to the worship community, a vertical role. Again, dude, I didn't go to college. I don't have a degree. I don't know what marketing structures, business structures, any of this stuff looks like, right? But I'm just like, I just knew what God had put in my heart. I hadn't sat up late at night drawing this stuff out. Like, it's just coming out of my mouth. And I'm just like, I think we need to focus on a vertical market. Had never heard that word before. Don't know where that came from. I mean, seriously, like some really crazy things. And he's like, okay, I'll tell you what, let's do this. I heard you. I'm going to wait a week. You think about what I'm offering you. I'll think about what you presented to me, and we'll get back together in a week. I won't fill that position that I offered you. And I could hear it in his voice. Okay. It was basically the whole like, hey, go get a cup of coffee. Sit on this a little bit because you're throwing something crazy at me, and what I offered you is what these other 11 guys are wanting. And I offered it to you, so think on it.
I'm going to give you a minute to come around.
Exactly.
Change your mind, come back to it.
Go off on the back porch, cool off a little bit, come back in, let's sit down. Right. So I'm like, okay, great, awesome. Again, thank you for the opportunity. Boom, hang up the phone. Don't think anything about it. About 14 hours later, my phone rings, and it's this individual calling me. I could see it on my BlackBerry.
BlackBerry.
That gives you the time frame.
Wow.
Yeah. So I look down at my BlackBerry and I see, okay, cool. Hey, what's up, man? He's like, hey, you know what? He said, I made a few phone calls. I said, okay. He goes, I want to offer you a different position. And I said, okay, is the other one still on the table? Of course, by this point, I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute.
I've got a new position because I went ahead and filled the other one.
Yeah, exactly. And he said, yeah, the other one's still on the table, but he said, here's what I think is the right fit for you. I said, okay, what is it? And he explained exactly what I had explained the morning before. He said, I think we need to align you to work with end users in the worship community. Mm-hmm. He said, I don't know what that looks like. I like the idea. Said I made some phone calls. I don't understand the church market here in the U.S. because he had come from Denmark, and church in Denmark is very different. Yeah. He said, but with the trusted individuals that I've spoken with yesterday afternoon, post our phone call, he's like, I didn't realize, like from a business perspective, it's big here. And what you're presenting actually might make sense. And I'm just crazy enough to try it if you are. And I was like, heck yeah.
Let's go.
Like, wow, are you kidding me? Like, yeah. And what's funny, and I don't know why people like this 12-month thing, but it was the same thing. It was like, but here's the deal. And now these are two different people, same organization, but two different people. And he said, here's the deal. He said, I'm willing to try it for this year. And if it doesn't work, then there may not be a job for you in the organization because I'm going to fill this other position. And I was just like, great, let's do it. And I don't think it was because I knew that I could be successful in it, but I knew that God was in this, like building up where God had equipped me, but more importantly, God had what I call flatlined me that day, to reset my heartbeat, to get it right back where he needed it to be, so that when the opportunity came into play, it wasn't about me. It was more about, as well as I do, we have to balance this thing of, we work for a manufacturer, and there's things that the manufacturer needs, the business needs, but then there's also the ministry side of it as well. And the ministry side of it really is more about what the church production community needs.
Right.
Where are their needs at? How do we fulfill those, and how do those things balance each other? So anyway, I was like, great, 12 months, no big deal. And I did that for, excuse me, let's see, that would have been 7 years.
Okay.
With Martin. At about maybe it was longer than that. It was longer than that. It was 9 years. 9 years.
Okay.
And at the 12-year mark of me being with the company, I think I'm getting the math right, the 12-year mark of me being at the company, Martin ended up selling.
Okay.
So by that point, I'd been with Martin for 12 years. First 3-ish years was a regional sales manager. The last 8.5 to 9 years was what we called a market manager for the House of Worship. And things were great. And then we get this notification that this big behemoth company called Harmon was buying Martin, right? And, as soon as I heard about it, anytime you have a buyout, all these types of things, it was the first time I had experienced it. But everyone around me, like, their hair was on fire. Everyone's freaking out. Right. Oh my gosh, they're going to let us go. They're going to do this. They're going to change everything. And some of that could be true, and some of it might have been true eventually. But I just kind of had peace. I mean, I was just like, okay, like, we'll figure it out. And of course, I mean, there's a human side. I mean, I have flesh. I have flesh and bones. Like and I have a mind that goes crazy. And so, I mean, were there times where it was like, they may not need your position. They're a big company. They probably already have somebody that focuses on the House of Worship market. There were absolutely times where that came up, but I was just like, okay. I mean, if that's the case, then I can do something else, or God will provide something else. And so anyway, as it turns out, they didn't have someone.
They didn't have a worship person.
No, they had other business development roles for verticals, but not one for House of Worship. And they really, I don't think, could even explain, like, they were kind of like, we don't even know why we don't have someone. Like, that totally makes sense. So I was able to transition right into the Harmon. And so now, instead of just having a lighting brand, now there was 10 other audio brands. And of course, I started in audio. So it's like, okay, I can start playing in that sandbox a little bit more now. And so I was there after the Harmon transition for 5 years. That's when I was able to finally bring you into working with me, supporting.
That was when I moved into the manufacturing world.
Yeah. Yep. And then we brought Lucas in a little later. And so, man, we had a great time there, doing the Impact Worship Tour stuff and going out and doing trainings and all of that was great. And then just out of the blue, a friend of mine who used to work for Martin in the days, named Ben Dickman, I get this Facebook message, and he's like, "Hey, Daryl, haven't talked to you in a while. I'm elaborating here a little bit. This my words, not his exactly, but basically, he's like, hey, I've been asked to get your email address. Insert reason why for someone within the organization at Chauvet." And so I was like, that was kind of weird. I'm like, okay, well, man, hey, great to connect. Hope you're doing well. Sure, here's my personal email address. So I gave him my personal email address. And needless to say, I had no desire to leave. I mean, what we were doing was great. I mean, every organization has its ups and downs and its quirks, and it's, I wasn't looking for greener grass. Let me put it that way. And over the years, I mean, I'd had several conversations with some great friends who worked for great manufacturers that had wanted me to come in. And, I've always said, if a door's open, you should look through it. I don't think that's betraying your loyalty to where you're at or the people that you're around at all. Because you never know, God might have the right thing on the other side of the door for you. And then again, he may not at all. And so I had looked through those doors, and those doors could have been fun to walk through, but I just never, in my spirit, it just never was the right situation at that time. And so again, I just figured it was one of those things, and so I get a phone call from Grant Goodson, who's the national sales director at Chauvet, and we have some conversations, and they're looking at, they don't have a vertical approach, and they're looking at hiring one. And, my name had come up in several conversations over the last 2 to 3 years that Grant and Albert Chauvet had been involved with. And so the name kept popping up and tied to the House of Worship, and, hey, we're wanting to make this investment, and we think maybe you might be the guy. And I'm like, okay, honored. I've never met these people before. Don't know much about Chauvet at the time, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, it was a competitor. But other than there was a lot of ex-Martin employees that had moved into Chauvet. You know, Ben Dickman had worked at Martin. He's there. Rich Noon, who was the head of customer service at Martin, had been at Chauvet for, you know, I don't even know how many years at that point, probably 8 to 10 years. So there was a lot of folks a lot of the service tech folks from Martin had moved over to Chauvet as well. And so it's like, I know people there, but like these guys that are reaching out to me, I don't know them. And so a couple conversations, nothing big, just getting to know each other, talking about business a little bit, talking about house of worship. And it kind of got to the point where I felt like it was definitely on Chauvet's side, it was going pretty quick. And I was like going to have to start, is this real or not? So I'm like, I need to put them on their heels a little bit. So I said, hey, I got like 4 things I really need to understand. And I don't remember exactly what the 4 things were, but essentially what I needed to do is I needed to say, okay, Grant, Albert, I need to know, how do you see the house of worship market? What do you think's the right way to engage with the market? Like I need to know, like, from your company DNA and culture, how do you perceive the market? How do you think, you know, is the right way to engage the market? Like, what is all that? Like, I need to understand your mindset and your heart posture in this very heart posture type conversation. I thought I just bought myself 60 days. Easily thought I bought myself 60 days. Less than 2 weeks later, I get an email back. And it was actually July 4th, because I remember sitting with my wife. Boys were swimming in the pool. I'm sitting next to my wife at the pool, and I get this email, and I look at it. It says, hey, Daryl, we took your questions, and we've had 2 different meetings with our executive team. Our responses are attached. We came up with a couple other things that came up in our conversations that we thought might be important to you. See the attached document. Look forward to chatting soon. Grant Goodson. Okay, cool. Open it up. I read it. I read it a second time. Again, the 3s. Right. I read it a 3rd time. And I handed it over to my wife. I said, you need to read this. She looks at it. She reads it once. She goes, did you write that?
No kidding.
And I said, no, but I could have.
Yeah.
I said, that is Chauvet. And she's like, Chauvet? I said, the guys that reached out to me about this job, you know, she's, oh, yeah. I said, that's the response to my questions that they gave me.
Wow.
And she goes, I said, I think we're going to need to start praying about this. And, I mean, it was at that moment where I was like, this is different than any other door that I'd looked through before. So we just go through the process of, you know, at that point, it's like, okay, you know, let's meet. And I do have to go into a little bit of detail on this one, because I think this really, for me, was pivotal, is that I am a very loyal individual. And you know that about me. I mean, I am loyal to a fault of, even if I know you're wrong, I'm going to fight for you and we'll sort it out later, you know, right. Type scenario. But I was like, man, you know, making this move, it's like, I'm giving up 17 years collectively.
Yeah, you'd been a Martin a long time at that point.
12, and then, you know, the 5 after the purchase. And so that, I mean, in the HR documents, that's 17 years with Harmon, right? I'm like, I've been 17 years investing in these people and the stuff and everything. And it's like, I need a guarantee. Like, I want a contract. Never had a contract. I mean, short of a job description you sign at the bottom or something, you know, a piece of HR documentation or whatever. But it's like, I'm going to get me a contract. I'm going to be, you know, I'm going to do that. But I didn't know how to do that. So I go meet with the group for the first time. Oddly enough, my second oldest son, Kyle, was at Palm Beach Atlantic doing a soccer clinic that week. And so I was working remote. And I did take a PTO day. I took a PTO day off work, and I drove down to Sunrise, Florida, to meet with the Chauvet folks. And So I'm down there, and I, of course, ask him to meet off campus because there's a lot of former people that work at Chauvet that we didn't need to disrupt the water at all. And so we sat down. We had scheduled a 2-hour meeting, and I didn't really know who was going to be there. And so I sat down, and I met Albert Chauvet for the first time. And this voice behind the phone calls, and the guy behind the emails, Grant Goodson, was there, and there was 4 or 5 other people that were there, and never met. One of them I had met Deanna. Deanna was there, and I had met her briefly at a trade show, I think maybe a year or 2 before. But that was the only familiar face that I had in the room. And so we're going through, and we had scheduled for 2 hours, and we're talking through this whole thing. And the whole time in my head, I'm trying to figure out, like, God, how do I ask for a contract? Like, I wanted a guarantee. I mean, at least a couple years. Like, I had just seen so many different manufacturers hire a worship guy, and within 6 months, the worship guy is now a sales guy.
Just another salesperson. Yeah.
And then now he's not a worship guy, he's a regional sales manager, or they get rid of the position altogether. I had seen this happen in the audio world specifically several times. And that's what I was afraid was going to happen. Like, I give up this 17-year career with a lot of people I love, like you and Lucas and Mark Eichley, and just, I could start naming names. I'm like, but I got to have a guarantee. I need this in writing. Like, if nothing else, you fire me in 6 months, I don't have to work for another 2 years. Like,
right.
That's in my mind. Of course, I'm thinking way bigger than I should have been. But so we're sitting there, and we're at about the 2:15 mark, and Albert Chauvet's like, hey, man, I love everything. I mean, the conversation went great. Everything in the conversation, everything was going good. I'm feeling good, but like, he's like, I'm going to have to get back. Like, got some other things. And I was like, oh yeah, we're 15 minutes over. I'm like, okay. But I hadn't asked the question. I hadn't gotten can I get a contract? Can I get a guarantee? And so I just said, before you leave, I said, I have to ask a question. And Albert sat back down. He's like, sure, absolutely. What? And I mean, he's sitting straight across from me.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, everyone else is kind of around us, but like the whole time. And I mean, Albert's just staring me down for 2 hours, which I loved. And he's got a great smile. Anyway, it was endearing, but it was, I've never met the guy, and he's, he founded this company. He's,
it's his name on the side of the building, right?
And he's a very respected individual. I just had never met him. And, but I didn't feel threatened. I felt very welcomed. And so I just said, hey, so I got a couple questions. Like, I really need to process this. Like, at the time they had shared with me that, that the single largest kind of vertical customer base that they had was the house of worship market. Okay. They shared that with me. And I said, I don't understand why you don't have this position. It's a business development role, although we can't call it that because the sales team at Chauvet is called business development. But I'm like, it's a business development role. It's the first one the company's ever had. House of Worship is already the largest single vertical market. Best you guys can track it here in the U.S. So if the House of Worship is your biggest market already, why is the first vertical market position focused on the House of Worship? Because typically you would invest that into like a market where you go, hey, we have a lot of potential here, but we're not selling here.
Right.
Let's hire someone to be hyper-focused on that community to figure out how to grow that business. Like, we're relevant. We need to get the word out to this group of people. Let's get a singular focus to help us figure it out. So I don't understand. House of Worship is already your largest vertical. You don't have a vertical person. Why would you hire a vertical person for the market that's already your biggest market?
Because clearly it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you're doing already is working. So why make the investment? And I said, and the other thing, like, why me? Because I said, in all due respect, I'm not the most expensive guy, but I'm not the cheapest option. Like, so, and he sat back down, or he was sitting down at this point. The smile I can picture right now. And he just leaned back into his chair and he just said, Daryl, he said, if you would have said that to me, if you'd asked me those questions in the first 10 minutes of this conversation, he said, I could have just stood up and shook your hand and said, guys, make the deal happen. this guy's needs to be on our team. He said, let me tell you. He said, here's the deal. He said, I wouldn't be a man of my own integrity if I didn't invest first in the people who've invested the most in me. He said, number one, I'm a man of faith. And at that point, I was like, okay, I see it. He said, the worship community has invested so much in me and what we do here as an organization, as a company, that for me to not make this first investment in a vertical or a group of folks, for me not to make it in the house of worship market first, wouldn't be aligning with who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And he said, why you? I want the best. And I've been told you're the best, which was a humbling statement. And all that was a bunch of my buddies that, probably were like, hey,
they're talking around pumping you up.
Yeah, exactly. And I know who all of them are, by the way. And I've thanked every one of them. And I just sat back and I was like, that's my guarantee.
Oh, you did get your guarantee.
That was my guarantee. I mean, God just gave me peace about that. And it's like, don't say another word about a contract. The guarantee was like, that was just God saying, I got you. This is where you need to be at. And the decision was done. I mean, we hadn't talked money or anything like that at that point, but like in my head, I was just like, all right, we just got to figure out what's the next 30 days look like? What's the next 60? What's the transition? And like, this is where I'm going. I knew it. And it was tough. It was tough to have the conversations with you, but, to let you know that I was moving on. But at the same time, I felt good about it because you were ready. I mean, we had done so much together. We work as a unit anyway. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I knew I wasn't leaving you or the company in a bad position. And if anything, it was like, I mean, you were going to just take it and run. Like, and we did a good transition there. I mean, you and I communicated.
It was really healthy. I felt that it went really well.
Of making sure you were in meetings that you normally wouldn't have been in, and just preparing for that, knowing that I was going to be leaving, and so, but yeah, that's how I landed at Chauvet. I guess it'll be 7 years in September of this year.
Wow, 7 years. So yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
yeah.
So you came to Chauvet. You get to be the worship, the first vertical market worship guy. You had an idea that you wanted to have an annual gathering of folks.
Yeah.
And you were going to call it
Thought Leader.
There you go. Talk about the genesis of Thought Leader. I mean, this is the Thought Leader podcast after all, right?
Yeah.
So where did that idea come from?
So in the early days, I'm going to go back to the Martin days. I had decided that one thing I needed to do is I wanted to create an advisory board. I just felt that part of what I needed to do is some accountability back to the organization and to me about understanding like what is it that the church needs, like not just going and visiting someone and seeing their campus and talking about their ministry specifically, but like bringing a group of folks together to like collectively say, what are the challenges? What are you needing product wise? What are needing? Are we doing something that's inappropriate? Should we do something different? Just that kind of thing. But with the idea of building community as well, because at that time, you're talking 20 something years ago, early 2000s, late 19s, 90, early 2000. And churches could be right across the street from each other and they wouldn't talk.
Never know each other.
They would never know each other. Yeah. But you put them in the room together and they'd talk for hours, right? And unfortunately at that time, they were scared in the room talking because if their pastors found out, they might get a little upset.
You were talking to the guy from that church over there?
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we called it the PPV. We had a group of guys that came together once a year for a retreat. It was good. Great relationships established. Quite frankly, everyone that's in that group are still very active some are active in the church, some have moved in the manufacturing world. But it really kind of, some are in the integration world. It really was the foundation of what we now call Thought Leader. So we had some other elements to it at that point, but I'll just say this. I felt like that what we now know as thought leader, God had given me the vision for then, but it wasn't the right time and maybe wasn't fully resourced to do what it needed to do, both inside and just within society. Mm-hmm. And I'll explain that in a second. So I come to Chauvet, talking to Albert about all the things kind of I've done. We've done this, and I mentioned this PPV advisory board thing, and explain the heartbeat behind it and all that. And he's like, "Man, I love all of this, and I want you to do it all. I want whatever of this you want to do. I want to be able to facilitate, but like that thing, that's my heart." So he's like, "I want to make sure that you do that, but I want you to do it bigger than you've ever done it before." Mm. And I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. Okay, I'm down. Let's do this. So I prayed a lot about it, at the first, and I was just like, God, how do I do it? Because before I selected 12 guys to come in, and it was kind of the same 12 guys. And I just decided, you know what, I think the right way to do this is to create, like a small little leadership team. And I just grabbed four guys that I was well connected with and said, hey, I want to do an annual retreat. I want to call it Thought Leader Retreat. And what I want to do is I really have a heart for connecting the older generation to the younger generation. And so really Thought Leader is founded in that. And the idea of bringing people together to collaborate, share ideas, share experiences, and invest in each other. The whole mentoring-ship type thing that I kind of had as a young boy in Branson, with a guy willing to teach me how to, what this knob does, what that does, and even into going into theatrical lighting concepts with, Bob making investments in me of understand lighting and all of that. To me, that's all mentoring. Don Udy sitting down, talking about a low voltage switch and how it works and all that. Not just giving me the answer to my question, not just giving me a fish dinner, but teaching me how to fish. Right. And so I share this with my four buddies and said, hey, I want to do this retreat. I want you guys to come, but I want you to invite I want each of you to invite 2 people, because I don't want to be biased or jaded or whatever by just inviting people I know. Like, I know you 4 guys. I trust you guys. And the idea here is I want to bring younger gen with the older gen together and come together for a few days and like share experiences. I didn't really have it figured out exactly what the programming would look like, but like, we're going to come together, we're going to build community, we're going to share ideas, we're going to connect, and all I want to do is start a conversation. Mm-hmm. And we still use that today. I'm not trying to create a members only club, not trying to create a fan club or anything like that. Like, I want to bring people together and build community. And the business side of it is we just kind of want to understand what you guys are saying. We want to hear you guys interact. We want to understand if there's any product ideas or whatever, right? So it's really a good marriage of, it's not a sales pitch or anything like that, type scenario. So we do the first one, and man, it goes great. I loved it because I knew really 4 guys that were coming.
Oh, yeah.
Out of 12. So I get to meet 8 new friends.
Right.
And by the time I left, I had, 12 college buddies.
Right. Yeah. After spending the week together.
After spending the week together, I felt like of course I knew 4 of them, but I felt like the other 8, I'd known forever. Like, we got very little sleep, had a lot of conversations, and great food and great fellowship, and just anyway. So that was 2019, and we're like, oh yeah, we're doing that again for sure. This is great.
Right.
But at the time, it was a retreat. It was a once a year retreat.
It was an in-person thing.
In-person thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So then we all know what happened in 2020.
Yeah. Let's not do that again.
Nope. Not going to do that again. Although I will tell you that there is a positive that came out of it. I'll get to that in a second. So 2020 comes, and I'm like, nah, Satan, you're not going to do this. Mm-hmm. I'm like, we did this thing last year. I got the support to do it. The drive is there. Albert loved it. The whole team loved it. And now you're telling us we can't get together. Thank God I live in Missouri, and I'll leave that there.
Okay.
So I reached out to Albert and I said, hey, I really want to do a retreat. Now, the retreat at the time was in August. And he was like, man, I want to do what's right. I want to do it safe. I don't want to jeopardize anyone. He said, but here's what I'm going to tell you. If you can do it, and you can do it, and, you know, of course, all the words at the time, do it safe, you know, all those things. He said, you have the funding to do it. I said, okay. So I reached out to the 4 guys and said, hey, I want to do a retreat. What do you guys think? And they're like, absolutely. Okay. We're going to have to do it different, because the first one was in Florida. And I said, I found a place here in Branson, Missouri. It's right on the lake. It's a 12-bedroom, 14.5-bath house. Everybody essentially has their own bedroom with a king suite with an ensuite. Everybody has their own accommodations, but yet we have the commons areas, and it had a gymnasium attached to it. We can set up this LED wall. We can do, you know, Zoom calls back and forth with people down in Florida, keep everyone separated out and all this kind of stuff. And we can have our, you know, roundtable discussions and our community building times and all that. And we'll just, everybody fly in. We go to this house. We stay in the house. We had all of our protocols. If you wake up, you got a temperature, blah, blah, all the things you were doing at that time, right? Mm-hmm. You know, stay in your room. Everything's going to be on a Zoom call. You know, even if you're in the house, you can be on a Zoom call, whatever. So we do the retreat, and I'll just say, like, the people that showed up, it was just such a great exhale during that season.
Sure.
That it's like it just went up a notch, you know, from 2019 to 2020. It's like the retreat just got better. But I think really in that season, we really started to see like the real value of people connecting and really sharing experiences. And post that event, we were doing a leadership discussion with myself and the 4 guys and the 4 senior leaders. And it was like, okay, what can we do besides just an annual retreat? The annual retreat's great, but like that's 1 week out of the year. You know, there's 51 other weeks out of the year. Could we do something with thought leader that has the same heartbeat that does this? And one of the leaders said, well, I don't know. We're all on stinking Zoom calls these days. And we've actually become really effective at doing our jobs because, you know, even at that time, a lot of the, in a church organization, people were Zoom calls, and then, you know, the production team would show up to do the things, and then people would pop in at the last minute. But all the planning wasn't really in person; it was on Zoom calls. Mm-hmm. And so he just said, maybe we should just create like a mentoring program and do it via Zoom. Like, that's interesting. And keep in mind, I'm the dude that before 2020, if I was on a Zoom call, my camera was off. You know, we just did it as a way to conference voices together, right?
It was a voice over IP solution.
Yes, yes. So anyway, we took a few months, and I was like, okay, I did a lot of research on how do we facilitate this, because you kind of have to, you know, Zoom versus Outlook calendar, you know, planning type thing, whatever. So one of our colleagues now, but I was talking to him, and he's like, man, I got a friend that kind of helps people, you know, put together like their like entrepreneurs that like have their online courses and those types of things. Like she's a consultant. She helps put all of that together, like find the right platform. She helps get it built and kind of started. And so it was like, great. He got me a free 30-minute call with her. And so I got on the call and said, this is what we're looking at doing. And she's like, number 1, super cool. Number 2, I know exactly. I mean, she's like, within the first 5 minutes, I know exactly what we can do. I can have you up and running in a week.
Wow. It's that fast.
And I'm like, okay, slow down. Anyway, so we were able to do it, and we just decided, you know, ultimately we landed on a platform that has a whole kind of private social media side, which really wasn't what we were seeking, but it's just a byproduct of it. So it's like, okay, well, I mean, now we have like this thing where you can go in, and it's a tool that facilitates these calls with Zoom and the calendar and all that. But then it's also a place where, you know, kind of people can go to get trusted voices or ears to hear what they need and have a trusted voice come back. So anyway, so we just decided we're going to test pilot this thing. We'll do one season. We'll just do a mentor circle is what we called it, because we didn't want to do curriculum base. We wanted to be more of a conversational. Again, 2019, we're starting a conversation. Right. And I told the guys when we left from that, I said, it's your job to continue the conversation from here. And so when we did the test pilot run where we invited 20 or so people that we knew, myself and the leaders, and just tried the rhythm, tried the topics. Does this work? Is there value? And within 3 sessions, we were like, everyone was like, oh yeah, for sure. And so I guess it was July of 2021 is when we publicly went to, and at that time we had 4 mentor circles. And we've refined it from there, and we've added, some great leaders to the team. I mean, I think now we have 11 leaders, and we have 2 seasons every year, as with Thought Leader. But man, it is just so good to see guys and gals, because we have Christina and Lara lead our women's mentor circle, which we knew that there was a need for. But man, I mean, watching those ladies like connect and turn into this I would like to see like a conference or a show or a weekend service where that group of gals came together and just like did it, because I think they would crush it. I mean,
they're all rock stars.
They're a freaking army.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, that was a tangent. But yeah, so we started mentor circles, and we're still doing them today, and we do 2 seasons a year, and we've got it on an every other week rhythm, as because that constantly just tweaking, trying to figure out like what works, keeping people connected, making people see value, what is the rhythm of the life, of life and production. And I know that changes all the time, but like what's convenient versus what isn't convenient. Because if you do things that's not convenient or something that people can forget about, too much time in between calls, they forget about it, didn't put it on the calendar, they don't show up. Well, then you have 3 months in between connecting with people. And
right.
So anyway, yeah. And it's been awesome. I mean, we do a lot of other things as well. I mean, we do roundtables sometimes where, right now that we're not in that season. But I mean, for us, Thought Leader is just it's a way to create rhythm in life for those of us who serve in church production. And then we're just a facilitator of it.
Right. Absolutely.
We just facilitate on the platform, the conversations. We love to break bread with people. We love to host people.
That's our love language, feeding people.
100%. So, when trade shows or whatever, and do gathering dinners, and we just facilitate those moments. So, but yeah, I've loved it, man. And I think, I think God's using it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that probably the first time it really hit me was when we have a colleague that works with us now, and I won't mention his name, but he was at a church for about 10 years, and he was part of the pilot program, and he told me afterwards, he said, Daryl, I want you to know, he said, I love being here at Chauvet, and he said, I wouldn't trade it, but he said, if Thought Leader would have been around while I was employed at the church, if I would have had this community to lean into, I never would have left the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he gave a big word of encouragement to myself and the leadership team of just like, this is so needed. And this probably would have kept me in vocational ministry had I been involved in something like this. And so that for me was the moment where I was like, okay, like that's powerful. Mm-hmm. That's powerful in the sense of like, you're not going to save them all.
Right.
But if you can, I mean, I even need it, on the calls, dude. I mean, I show up to those calls, how to become a better leader. And I'm listening. I mean, I'm looking for the word of the day, man.
Right.
I'm looking for what can I grab from this and take in the next 2 weeks, 10 years, 6 months, whatever. Right. And even though we have that conversation, 2 times a year during different seasons, different seasons need a different word.
And it hits different.
It does.
Each time.
It does.
Yeah.
But, I love it because you can meet somebody and within 3 calls, you kind of feel like you've hung out with them for a week, or you've went to college for 4 years together. And then when you do meet in person for the first time, you're like, wow, you're tall.
You're bigger in real life than you are on Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, Zoom, you're just this little square, but you're bigger. But you sit down and you just pick right up, and the conversation just happens. Yep. And then, man, it's just so good. I think it is a picture, a small piece of the picture. It's a pixel of what the church should look like.
I agree. Yeah.
Meaning that I don't know why we haven't done this before.
Right.
But I said earlier that I would kind of tie it together. When we did the PPV early on, Zoom was a very corporate use thing.
Oh, yeah.
Doing video calls and all that. So technology wasn't there. I mean, Facebook wasn't even around at that time publicly, on a wide scale. And so social media platforms weren't really a conversation piece. So the resources socially weren't there in our social environment. And so it was very much an in-person, very much more challenged. But I really felt like God had planted the seed at that point. And I've had some look back and really look back on that and go, without a shadow of a doubt, the vision for what we are actually, the seed was planted then, right? And the ground was cultivated, the seed was planted, and it's been watered. Yeah. And it's been watered, and it's been watered, and it took 12 years to finally see a little sprout pop through. And now we have rows of harvest, and we've bought the farm next door, and we're buying 2 more farms down the street, and that's the season we're in. But for me, it's been that realization of just like, wow, I wish I would have realized throughout the entire process what was happening. But at the same time, had I known it, I would have been more anxious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I would have been like, okay, God, when I open this door, this needs to happen. So I know that you're still doing so. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I probably, that's me. That's right. Daryl. That's
right. You'd want confirmation each step of the way.
Absolutely.
Instead of just trusting in the process.
Absolutely. Yeah. But even to this day, man, I still pray, Lord, I want your will in my life. Mm-hmm. I want you to be in control. I want you to show me the situation. My prayer life has changed dramatically. I mean, we are blessed to be able to know what goes on in a lot of people's life now that I didn't have before. Yeah. I count it an honor when somebody sends us a text and says, hey, I'm dealing with something. Can you pray for me? Right. Dude, I stop. My prayer changes though. It used to be, Lord, please heal this person, do this thing, make this happen, and I think that is good. And I think that is all in the right heart posture.
Sure.
But for me personally, I think through this journey, what God has shown me is that my prayer is, God, I love this person and you know what's going on in their life. Yeah. And I don't. I pray that you will be with them through this process and that whatever the result is what your will is, and use me or people around them, whatever the outcome is. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you that when you pray that way, I don't know why, but I see more actual, I would say, what we want to happen, healing, or the answer we would prefer. I don't know why. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm not trying to get into the whole theological thing here. I'm just telling you that for me personally, like, that moment in that F-150 truck in the pizza place, like that had really altered so much of my personal walk with Christ that the fruit is bearing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Just the little bit of adjustment in the pH in the soil, in time.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go.
There you are. And that brings us up to present day, doing this thought leader thing together.
Yeah. So
I want to start something new. If you'll play along with me here. I want to wrap up each one of these episodes with a question.
Yep.
And feel free to take a minute to think about it if you need to. But if you could go back to 18-year-old Daryl Sutton in Branson, Missouri, and give him one piece of advice, knowing what you know today, what would you tell 18-year-old Daryl?
I would tell 18-year-old Daryl in 19 and 20 and 25 and 30 and 40-year-old Daryl that there are things we do in life that are important, but what's more important is being present in the moment. And for me, where that hits heavy, and what I really would tell my 18, 19, 25, 40-year-old Daryl is, my career, as blessed as it's been, and as much as a male, and I'm going to say it that way, we let our career define us too much, and we justify it, everything we do career-wise, because it's, in most cases, in my case, I'll say, I was blessed to be able to be the financial provider for my family.
Right.
But I didn't provide the other stuff. And my wife did an amazing job doing that. And so, my boys are rock stars. My wife is a rock star. Let me back up. My wife's a rock star. My boys are rocks.
Oh, I love that.
Okay.
Love that.
And I wish I would have been more present in those moments that I was home, that I wasn't, because I was thinking about the next thing. And I justified it. I know we all do sometimes. It's my career. That's how I provide for them. I've got to focus. If I don't focus on this, if I don't take the brain power right now to figure this thing out so that when I get in that meeting or I go do that thing that I'm ready and prepared, I'm lying to myself, number one, because I would have been better to have spent the time and energy with the people in front of me.
Yeah.
That would have made me better in that meeting or in that event. And that's something that the last really 2 to 3 years has really been a focus for me, of like really trying to stay within the present, almost to the point of ignoring everything else outside the room. That I'm still working on. So don't have that one figured out. But that's what I would say I would tell my younger self.
Yeah.
For sure. Thank you for asking me that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's good to remind, figure out what would we tell ourselves?
Yeah.
Because we learn a lot, telling our story,
Yeah.
right? And how we got to where we are. I think it's good to say, okay, well, based on where I am now, what advice would I give to myself? Because one of your boys is about 18, right?
Yeah. I have 18, 20, 23, and 27.
Okay. 4 boys.
And a 2-year-old grandson.
Yeah, you do.
I love him. Tate Lee.
Love that. So, well, dude, thanks so much.
Bro, it's been fun.
Taking time to tell your story. And hope that everyone who's watching or listening has enjoyed it. And stay tuned, because we're going to have more episodes coming.
Yeah, I get to pick into his story next, so stay tuned.